everybody, and welcome to a very special board gaming discussion video. Today's video is particularly special because this is sort of going to be the aggregation of a lot of things that I've talked about over the course of these several years that I've been making these videos. I've talked about it a little bit when I talked about expansions. I talked about it when I was discussing like board games and genres that we've really had too much of, all of this kind of thing. And that is to say, like, what is going on with gaming in terms of what we are seeing as a general trend. And the problem that I'm seeing, and like, granted, I have not been in the board gaming community for an extremely long amount of time, but I've been in here long enough to really start seeing some of these same patterns that we're seeing in like movies and TV shows and things like that. And again, I've talked about a lot of this stuff in previous videos, but today I'm just sort of like trying to gather it all together into one nice big bunch. And the biggest thing, just as with all of these board gaming discussion videos that I do, what I really want to know is what you guys think about the subject, what you guys think about the topic. And today's topic really is what is happening to board gaming as an industry, and essentially as a parallel to the movie industry. Because what are we seeing in board game? Well, and not only that, but also in the video game industry as well. What are we seeing in board games? We're seeing a lot of rehashing. We're seeing a lot of new additions, reprints, things of that nature. We're seeing a lot of expansions and, for lack of a better term, downloadable content. We're seeing a lot of aesthetic changes that really don't do anything for the games themselves. These are the types of things that we are starting to see more and more and more of. And I will tell you, the thing that really brought this on was a game that I saw last week. And the game itself is Star Trek Frontiers. Now, for those of you who don't know, Star Trek Frontiers, while technically is not out yet, it is essentially Mage Knight, but Star Trek edition. And here's the thing. I was very much looking forward to it. I really, really was. But the problem came down to this. It's Mage Knight. It is Mage Knight, except it's Star Trek. And that's it. Now, don't get me wrong, the theme absolutely works, and it's based off of The Next Generation, which I love. I love the fact that it's based off The Next Generation because that is my favorite Star Trek franchise, but the problem is that nothing really changed. They didn't do anything except slap on the new theme to it. There are a couple of minor changes here and there, and like obviously the wording was changed to go with the Star Trek theme and things like that. But it's still Mage Knight. And realistically, that is not a bad thing, but at the same time, it's like, the only reason I would get that is because I enjoy the Star Trek aspect, and I think other people would be willing to play it instead of Mage Knight simply because it's Star Trek. And the problem is that worries me. I don't like that fact. I don't like thinking like that. Because like we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to try to be catering to these niche groups and all this kind of stuff. Board gaming in general, yes, is a relatively small niche in and of itself, but at the same time, we're just the stuff that we're doing is just so arbitrary. Like, another good example is Fury of Dracula. I just reviewed it, the 3rd edition. You know, we've had 3 editions. My favorite game of all time, Cosmic Encounter. It's gone through what, like 4 iterations throughout the decades it's been around. I myself have 2 of them. Not only that, but Cash and Guns, 2nd edition got released, what, 2 or 3 years ago, something along those lines. All this kind of thing. This is happening all over and all the time. Now, granted, some of them will change a lot of stuff. 2nd edition of Cash and Guns, for example, lots of changes, lots of great stuff. Cosmic Encounter tends to be more about the aesthetic, though. Game mechanic wise, like, yes, some stuff changes, some stuff gets taken away, other stuff gets added, this kind of thing, but the core game itself really is not that different amongst everything. Mage Knight to Star Trek Frontiers, though, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Along those same lines, we have the more dreaded, or arguably more dreaded, reprint. Now, the thing is, when I first started gaming, one of my favorite games to play was Nuclear War, because it is a terribly, amazingly fun game. It is so hilarious. And there was a Nuclear War Kickstarter that I backed not too long ago, and I was actually tremendously excited because I got my copy just a few days ago. And I'm so happy! I am so gratefully happy that I got this game. And then at the same time, I'm just like, it's literally a reprint. That's what it is. This is a reprint. And that is not bad. It is not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, I'm just like, really the only reason I got this was because of nostalgia. If I was a new gamer and I saw this game on the shelf, then I might look at it, I might even play it, but simply for its wacky, weird quirkiness. Other than that, I would not have given this game a second thought. And I mean, is that really where we're at? Are we at the point in board gaming where we are so focused on nostalgia and trying to recapture whatever magic it was that we had that we can't avoid doing anything else except literally remaking the same stuff over and over and over? Again, I can't really talk because I bought the game. I did. I got it. I totally got it. Same thing with, it's a little bit off topic, but in tabletop gaming, the 7th Sea second edition with the RPG. Absolutely incredible game. I love 7th Sea, and I was very happy to back the second edition of it. But at the same time, I'm just like, wait, did I really need to do that? I still have all my first edition stuff. Now, sure, like, it looks cool, we got some new artwork, we got this, that, and the other, but what's really going to change? Hopefully in that, something will change. With this is really just more of a straight-up reprint, which, again, it's not a bad thing. I just keep thinking to myself, like, I mean, I bought this solely for the nostalgia and how much fun I had playing the game, which is not bad. It's just, this is what board gaming has come to. This is what it's come to. The other issue, the other major issue that I've seen, at least, is, let's take, I mean, the last like 25, 30 years or so, right? Back in the day, I say, as a millennial. Ugh, I can't believe I'm millennial. But either way, back in the day, think about games like Monopoly and Candyland and things like that. You know, all these smaller, easier to play games are equivalent of like Super Mario, you know, and Legend of Zelda, you know, like the original NES games and things like that. You can't have expansions, you can't have downloadable content, you can't have any of this stuff. I guess technically, if people really wanted, they could have expanded Monopoly and Candyland and stuff like that. But it never happened, because at the time it didn't make sense. But now, this is all that we're getting. And the one example that I always hold up for this is actually Pandemic. So see, I'll show you guys right here. Right. Just gotta drag it off the floor. Pandemic. Now, for those of you who don't know, who haven't seen my videos before, with Pandemic, I will not play it without the first expansion, which in this case is On the Brink. Same thing for Ticket to Ride. If you don't have the, I believe it's the 1910 expansion, if I'm not mistaken, it's in like a tiny little box. If you don't have that, then I really do not enjoy Ticket to Ride nearly as much. With Pandemic, On the Brink adds pretty much everything that the original game should have already had. And in a way, it's kind of frustrating, because like once I played it with that expansion, I was just like, oh my god, how did I ever play this game without any expansions before? And thinking like that, again, just frustrates me, because it makes me feel like I'm not getting the complete game. Now, obviously, I went more in depth with this when I talked about my expansions and things of that nature. But there's a couple of games that did this, and I mean, those are the two that I think of off the top of my head. Again, both wonderful games. I mean, Ticket to Ride is hailed as a modern classic, and it is. It absolutely is. But at the same time, if you don't have that 1910 expansion, I'm just going to be sitting there with my tiny little cards in my giant hands, and I'm just like, oh my god, I can't see what I have. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what's going on. And same thing with Pandemic. I'm just going to be sitting here like, this is all the special cards that we have? Really? What about the virulent strains? I'm so bored. This is like, why are we even playing? What's the point? Why are we even bothering? You know, and that is the type of mentality that I get. And again, I hate having that mentality. I don't want to feel like I need this downloadable content, this additional stuff, these expansion packs, whatever you want to call it, all this kind of thing. And Kickstarter is particularly guilty of this in the sense that, you know, like with Kickstarted games, then you buy the game, and then one of the packages is you buy the game, and oh, you also get this expansion with it. Like, why do you call it an expansion if it comes with the game? Doesn't make sense. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand this. And it's frustrating to see that wording. It's frustrating to see this happening with all sorts of different games, obviously. Like, because it really is happening with all sorts of different games. And it's just very, very disheartening. Now, so along the same lines of the DLC aspect, and particularly with Kickstarter and things of that nature, is another thing that I've mentioned several times, and that is promos. I hate promos so much. The problem that I have with promos is that a lot of times they change the games drastically enough that if you play without them, it really feels like you're playing a different game. Same thing just like with Pandemic when you're not playing with On the Brink. You know, they will change the game that drastically and that dramatically. And it's really, really annoying because normally there is only a small window of opportunity for me as a gamer to get these promos. And this is really analogous to like the pre-order bundles and stuff like that we're getting with so many video games. You know, like the season pass, expansion packs and all that kind of stuff, like, yeah, that kind of thing is really annoying, but at least you can always get it. But then the nice thing that video games actually do is at least they keep everything strictly aesthetic. So if you get like a pre-order bundle pack thing, then typically the bonus you get for the pre-order will simply be like a new costume or a gun skin or something along those lines. Just something random that really means nothing in the context of the game. But a really good example for this is Sheriff of Nottingham, where I've talked about it before, where a lot of the promo cards are very specific and very interesting and unique contraband cards that drastically alter how things go if the contraband is found. So for example, like even if you have this contraband, then the sheriff still has to pay you. Or you know, you have specific contraband that like if it gets through it's worth more, but you have to meet certain requirements to do it and all this kind of stuff. It's really cool. It's so awesome. And it's just, they have some of these amazing things, and the problem is when you play without them, it's just like you're missing out. And granted, again, the whole point of the promos is that they're supposed to be really small, not make a huge difference for the gameplay and this kind of thing. But if you see it during a game, if you witness it being played, and then you think like, oh man, I'm never going to see that again, then it's really frustrating and it's really sad, honestly. And I can't stand it personally. It's something that really, really annoys me. Last but certainly not least is another thing that's, again, directly related, mostly to the video game aspect, but in part to movies, more so video games. Because we're talking about, like, graphics, we're talking about aesthetics. Again, you know, like Team Fortress 2, we're talking about hats. It's all about hats. Everybody's got to have hats. And Counter-Strike, you know, it's all about whatever your gun skin is and all this kind of stuff. You know, in the end, it makes no difference whatsoever for gameplay. And the thing is, that's why for me personally, this is the least of my worries in terms of where and how board gaming is progressing. And in a way, I actually really, really enjoy it and I greatly appreciate it, especially for what I'm going to show you guys right now. So, I actually have two of the specific things that I'm going to show you. So here, I've got Cosmic Encounter. And then the other thing that I've got is this bad boy that I've shown you guys a few times, my One Night Collection box. So both of these games, obviously the box is very obvious, but both of these games have broken token organizers in them. Now in the case of the Cosmic Encounter one, you obviously can't see it because the box is closed. But when we take out all the stuff here, let me see there, alright, so there you can see everything nice and fancy and organized. And it's so pretty. And the thing is, I absolutely love this. Before this, I had everything stuffed into various size plastic bags, and it all managed to fit. I've got all 5 expansions for the Fantasy Flight in here. It managed to all fit, but it was just really ugly, and it was tremendously difficult to find all the individual stuff that I needed. But now we've got a place for all the alien powers, we've got individual slots for the cards that you're able to customize as far as how big you want them, so how many cards can fit, place for all the player planets, all the different tokens, blah 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 blah, etc., etc. Same thing here for the One Night thing. See, I got my fancy playmat. For those of you who don't know, this was a Kickstarter reward. I know I was just like bashing Kickstarter not like 2 minutes ago, but that's beside the point, right? And then within here, this has all of the One Night stuff in it. So on this side we've got all the cards, and then on this side we got all the tokens. So this comes out, this is a nice little box just like that. Right? See, and this has all the little tokens in it. It's really cool, and it's tremendously convenient. And on top of that, it just looks beautiful. It looks gorgeous. So things of this nature, I absolutely love. I really do appreciate it. And again, that's why as far as the parallels between like board gaming and and video games, and to a lesser extent like movies and TV shows and stuff, this is by far the one that I am least nitpicky and caring about, so to speak, simply because I really appreciate where this stuff is going. I like having my games organized. I like having them look really good, and I like having a nice looking shelf. You know, and something like this box, particularly the one night box, is something that's eye-catching because it's so unusual. It's interesting. It's crazy. And then, you know, when I bring my my Cosmic Encounter over to like game night and stuff, then the first question people ask is like, why is it so heavy? And it's like, because there's a bunch of wood inside of it, because I got the fancy thing, and it's awesome. And the thing is, Broken Token has dozens and dozens of these. These are the only two that I have, unfortunately, but they're really, really awesome, and they're fun to put together. I really had fun with it. It's a nice little crafty thing to do. But at the same time, again, just as far as the parallels and what's happening to gaming, like we never saw anything like this 10, 15, 20 years ago, simply because, in part, games were somewhat less complicated. I mean, you know, 10 or 15 years ago, we did have very complicated games. They were really starting to come around. But you're not going to find organizers for Sorry. You're not going to find an organizer for Monopoly. You'll find, like, a collector's edition and fancy this and fancy that and fancy the other. But you're not going to find something like this insert. And that's just because, I mean, people just don't care that much about these games. But like with these hobby games, this is a change that I'm actually fully 100% behind, because I love having my games look good. I love having them put away nice and neatly, and everything is all happy, well, and good. And especially when you're talking about something like Dead of Winter or Race for the Galaxy and like Seven Wonders, games like this, where, you know, the organization is absolutely vital to the entire thing. If everything gets out of place, then it just creates a giant mess. And again, like with Cosmic Encounter, I literally had everything in little paper or plastic bags, and it was just horrible. It was absolutely horrible. But now, so much easier, so much better, so much nicer. And that's why, as far as the changes go, this is the one that I fully support, really. But other than that, like I said, crux of this video, this is pretty much it for me, but the main point for this video is I am nervous. I am worried because we are seeing a lot more games that are less and less different. We are seeing a lot of games that are sequels, in the sense of we're talking about expansions. We're seeing games that are comparatively incomplete and need expansions in order to be more fun. We're looking at games that are essentially parts of a story, which again are not bad. All right, so this I really didn't talk about, but I've got Time Stories. You know, I've actually got it over here, right? See, Time Stories. Time Stories, great game. I actually only just finished Marcy Case tonight, and it's amazing. Oh my god, it's so much fun. Y'all need to play if you haven't done so already. But that's the thing, having these like sequential stories and things like that just makes me feel like I'm waiting for, you know, the next Harry Potter movie or the next Hunger Games movie or whatever it happens to be. It's that same kind of feeling, and it's not necessarily bad, but it just makes me a little bit nervous, because all I can think is like, wow, that one was really fun, that one was really awesome. What if the next one isn't as awesome? What am I going to do with myself? You know, stuff like that. And I don't want to feel that way when I play games. I want to be happy when I play games. Most importantly, if I'm going to see a game like Star Wars Carcassonne or Star Trek Frontiers or whatever it happens to be, then I really hope that the game is different enough from what it came from that I can say, that is unique, that is cool, that is something that I really want to like get into and play and just have at. Okay, but the problem is, less and less we are getting that, and it's unfortunate, not to mention reprints and first and second and third and fourth and eighth editions or whatever it happens to be, and not to mention expansions upon new iterations like Munchkin and all this kind of stuff. Absolutely ridiculous. But I digress. That is it for my particular discussion today about essentially parallels between not only gaming industries but also movies and TV shows and stuff like that. And I worry that it's essentially a reflection on society itself. But that's way too philosophical for a board gaming video. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I will say thank you guys very, very much for watching. Once again, my absolute biggest thing with these videos especially is to hear what you guys have to think about it. Especially those of you who have been around longer than I have in the gaming industry and in life in general. Because I really am somewhat naive in this. I have seen what I've seen and it worries me, but many of you have been around for far longer than I have and seen way more than I have in all of these aspects. So I'm very curious what you all have to say. But with that, thank you very, very much for watching this. I do hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much again, everybody, for watching my board game discussion video about essentially rehashing and rebuilding on what we've already got. As I said, I would really love to hear what you guys have to say, especially those of you who are more experienced in board gaming than I am, simply because I haven't been around long enough to really see the entirety of the evolution of this thing. But that said, as always, I've got several of my playlists linked up at the top of the page, and you can click on the big giant subscribe button to see more of me in the future. Thank you very much for being here, and I will see you next time.